be more effective for the longer haul. So we'll take your thoughts on that. Who's the most overpaid Patriot? And any other NBA kind of hot stove topics. Those are really the big things this week. It feels like NBA, a lot of uncertainty with Kevin Durant injuries, with injuries to Klay Thompson. People are saying that maybe it's going to be Kyrie and Durant that go to the New Jersey Nets. Do you think that's in the cards? Do you think that's complete smoke? And do you put any blame, and how much blame do you put on a guy like Danny Ainge, who seemed to make the right move, and a guy like Kyrie Irving? But when you look back in it obviously revisionist history, hindsight's 2020, whatever cliches you want to throw, we can all look at things and be able to determine what the outcome was when we look back on it. But at the time, it really did seem like a good move, and I think where the Celtics went wrong is ultimately to hamstring themselves kind of to Kyrie moving forward. I think it was a good move to make the trade. I probably would have done that trade 100 out of 100 times, especially with some of the returns there. But it's just the fact that they signed guys like Marcus Smart to try to appease Kyrie. They kind of thought that they had a different plan. Seems like they were kind of angling at Anthony Davis for all this time. And, I think did Danny Ainge kind of assess Kyrie Irving's buy-in to an appropriate degree? Now, I think it's pretty much impossible for any of us to have predicted what he absolutely would have turned into. But do you put any blame to a guy like Danny Ainge for ultimately acquiring a guy like Kyrie Irving, as it looks like the Celtics are pretty much going to be starting over to some degree, or starting over plus Kemba Walker or plus Nikola Vucevic? So, again, big things for the Celtics in terms of changes, and I think we actually have a quote from Brian Windhorst. He was on this week. Brian Windhorst with a couple of the best quotes out of the week. He had one quote where he was talking about how he was talking with Jackie McMullen, saying that basically a short-term plan that's executed aggressively is better than a long-term plan that's laid out carefully. And basically saying that the Celtics were kind of stacked up to be good for the next 7 years, but didn't kind of step up in the moment and be the team for now. So, ultimately that's kind of what hamstrung them and, caused them to fall apart. Another quote we got that Brian's got queued up here from Windhorst, just talking about the state of the Celtics, the desperateness, chatting it over with Jalen Rose and a few other guys on ESPN.
Well, they need a point guard because Kyrie looks like he's walking, and Terry Rozier, even though he's restricted, has made it clear from the mountaintops he doesn't want to come back. So I don't necessarily think having free agent money in this class is the greatest idea, especially in Boston, which has not historically been able to draw free agents. There's a whole bunch of competition for those guys. I just can't believe the Celtics really thought they were going to lose Al Horford. I think their strategy was around, okay, we're going to re-sign Al and maybe add another piece. Now they got to replace Al Horford, which is incredibly difficult, and replace Kyrie Irving. It's not going to happen.
We were even talking about this before, and you brought up a great point about Isaiah Thomas, because I was saying it seems like the narrative is almost flipped a little bit for the Celtics very quickly, from them being like, hey, this is the team that's going to win the Eastern Conference. Look how Danny Ainge is so great. The way they handled the Isaiah Thomas situation, you talked about the fact before during our conversation about missing out on Kawhi Leonard, missing out on Paul George, hearing Terry Rozier literally come on this show and go on First Take and talk about, I want to be the guy, I want to feel appreciated. The Kyrie Irving situation, it talks about maybe how that franchise handles that climate.
And also missing out on Anthony Davis when everybody understands that you have the assets to get it done. Missing out on Kawhi Leonard,
yes.
where they had an opportunity to acquire him, and Paul George.
Jimmy Butler. We can kill
and there you have it. You got
How did the Celtics go?
Basically got Windhorst, Jalen Rose, and Jay Williams cutting each other off to butt in over the chaos that is erupted here over, just the organization, or just kind of the plan. It felt like there was a plan that was just in place to allow this team to be successful for a long time, and it just seems like in a moment or two that plan is completely dissolved. And you're listening to Brian Windhorst, who And I think a lot of people here in Boston, I don't think many people thought that Al Horford was going to leave, even if Kyrie left. I definitely...
No, not at all. Not at all.
That was not a thought that was on my mind. He kind of seemed like he had bought into being the ultimate Celtic. And, yeah, I definitely got to say that I'm surprised. I kind of thought it would be a situation where he may opt in and we may be upset. And it was kind of like when he opted out, it was like, whoa, he doesn't want to be here?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he took a look around, knowing that Kyrie was leaving. And listen, he's what, 33, going to be 34. He
is 30.
He does not have a ring.
Oh, trust me, I don't blame him.
Right?
Whatever he decides to do, I don't blame him one bit. This is either the last chance really to end up with a contender and play when you can still like have that contributing.
Yep.
Or it's the last chance for him to get a $100 million contract. So they've said, if he goes to a team maybe like Dallas or a team like the Clippers or somebody that can pay, he could potentially draw $100 million. So this is either really the last chance for him kind of to now I feel like this term goes around now, secure the bag basically, so to speak, or if he wants to go and end up on it. And he's kind of saying with this move that the Celtics aren't going to be a team that's going to be contending over the next couple of years. So,
yep.
Or at least in his mind. So, and he was a guy really that had bought in even prior to, he was kind of the first step. And when you peel this back a bit, just to have Marcus Smart be the most tenured guy here on this team, I mean, you just, if you obviously take away Hayward, Hayward's been in the league. So, yes, Marcus Smart, longest tenured Celtic.
That's
longest
incredible.
Terry Rozier, who you listen to them there. He was on ESPN a few weeks ago. We keep kind of talking about this, making the rounds, saying, I got to get out of here. And, then he's singing a completely different tune as he sees that Kyrie. So it's like, is this guy bought into this area? You give him the money. Is he unhappy after that? Because he kind of complained about the touches even last year. The Celtics are in a lot of trouble, and you're listening to some of the criticisms that have started to come down the hill, which are basically Jay Williams was starting to bring it up, Jalen Rose was starting to bring it up, that in going after Kyrie Irving, you took yourself off the table from a guy like Paul George. You took yourself off the table from a guy like Kawhi Leonard. Last year, if you offer the Spurs a trade straight up Kyrie Irving for Kawhi Leonard, I think they do that trade all day. Now,
I think they do. At the same time, I think they are then facing the same situation that they're facing now, of Kawhi probably not, looking to get elsewhere.
Sure. I'm just kind of saying the way that you could, like I've said, for me, it's tough to second-guess this trade in a lot of ways, but in some regards, there is kind of some spillover where we do have to say, that was kind of like a failed, maybe the next time around, we have to spend more time figuring out if the free agents we're going to sign are actually going to buy in, or because we really saw how Kyrie Irving is really kind of catapulted this franchise. There's a great quote from Danny Ainge who is saying, I just want guys who can kind of buy in, drop their egos. It was a quote just the other day after Kyrie had some comments, and really that comment kind of just blowing back to Kyrie, but it really was. He kind of came here and broke everything down, kind of was quiet the first year, but was hurt for most of it, so how much could he really say? The team made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals without him, and then this year, the first second that he's healthy, he starts chirping at these guys and causing all kinds of problems. Regular season matters. Nope, it doesn't. Just the playoffs does. Then no playoff performance. So, just a big kind of. The Kyrie domino.
Let me ask you this: what do you see as what do you think is the reason why it all went so wrong? What turned Kyrie off?
I think, honestly, I think we're having a much different discussion if Gordon Hayward never gets the injury. I think that Kyrie Irving was coming to play with a healthy 27-year-old in his prime.
20 points a game.
Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
And then you have Horford. Kyrie is the number one on that team. And you assume that with that team and the players that they have around them, that team's good enough to compete. I'll say it over and over again. I liked the Hayward signing. I wanted the Celtics to make the Hayward sign. I don't think you're going to find a lot of people that didn't want them to make that signing. I mean, Gordon Hayward he's gotten better every year, but he's also a guy that, a lot of people kind of, if you didn't watch him play, they overrated the fact that he is really an athletic guy. He's got the same vertical as Blake Griffin, believe it or not. For instance, pre-injury. And just a lot of the thing, he's not kind of typical. He wasn't just a shooter. He was a passer and a rebounder. And they also had just said that they had ran that offense through him a lot. I think they had kind of built an offense where Kyrie was going to have the ball out in isolation. Touches would go into Hayward. Horford was kind of like that third option, but I just think they saw a lot more success. I mean, the Gordon Hayward thing really hurts. If you get another free agent, bring in another free agent that's not even as good as Hayward, but he at least performs at that level, you're probably having a different discussion,
Okay.
I think that's part of what happened, because I think Gordon Hayward would have been another veteran to kind of like it almost became Kyrie versus the young guys.
Yeah.
And I think Hayward would have helped set that tone as well. And I feel like some of those younger guys wouldn't have had the minutes that they got as well. Like Jason Tatum was getting 25 minutes, 30 minutes as a rookie. He wasn't going to get that when Hayward was here. He was going to get 10 to 15 minutes as a rookie. So it accelerated the curve for a lot of the young. So it kind of increased the young guys' confidence a little bit too much,
which increased
they
Kyrie's
touches,
insecurities.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
I follow your logic.
Well, I feel like this too. I think that Kyrie could look at the playoffs, and if you looked at, Terry Rozier wasn't a great home road guy, but his home stats in the playoffs were like 19-7 or so. So does he look at a guy like Rozier and say, that's the next me, or is this really my team? I think he kind of wondered that too. It was kind of like the pullover. He wanted it to be his team. I think he saw them doing a lot of things to put Tatum as kind of the future of the franchise. I have no idea. Kyrie seems like the weirdest dude in the planet. He thinks that the earth is flat. Again, if we recap what he wanted, he started out in the NBA. His first 4 years, doesn't win anything over 20 to 30 games. They tell him that they're going to get LeBron James. He requests a trade, not granted, and stays there, wins a title alongside LeBron James, gets to take the most shots on a championship-winning team, says, okay, I don't like LeBron, don't like the way they catered to him. I'm going to go find a team that I get the most touches on, that's my team, that's a contender. Comes over to Boston, takes the most shots, has the ball in clutch time. Team's good. They obviously didn't perform as well as we all wanted them to in the playoffs, but now he's going to, so if he stays with the Celtics, he could have had more money. He's going to take less money to go to the Nets, who don't have another star there, and it's just like, where, if you try to like line up what this guy's criteria is, you'd just be drawing like circles on a map. Like, it's just impossible to figure out what this guy wants.
Yeah.
I feel like he could even go to, I look at the Nets and say they have a young guy like D'Angelo Russell. It's almost like they have young guys and they kind of overachieved last year. He's almost going into the same situation as the Celtics. And does he end up in a similar, it's just like, what situation can Kyrie thrive in? I'm really kind of confused, I guess. If he couldn't enjoy getting the most touches along LeBron in Cleveland, and then the biggest thing is, comes to the Celtics and really kind of becomes LeBron in terms of getting after the young guys and, just being a lot more vocal. Feel like he did a lot of the things that maybe he couldn't get away in Cleveland, but knew that he could get away with in Boston. As we have somebody punching us up here. You're live on Open Season. Hi, who do we have? You're live.
Hi, Billy. This is Mike.
Mike, what's going on, man?
Nothing. Just wanted to call in and talk a little bit about Al Horford here. I know you know I'm a big fan of his, but I would really like to see him, or I think he'd be a good fit in the Lakers.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a consideration. I think, one, I know that you like Big Al. And you know that I was never the biggest fan. So I know in the process of the NBA, I eventually said kind of like we had to get Big Al to start attracting guys here. We're going to have to overpay for a guy like that. But I think for the Lakers, they have to look at it as they're pretty much trying to get 3 stars over there. And is Al Horford basically the 3rd star that they see themselves away from a championship? And for my money, I see Al going to a team more like the Clippers or potentially the Mavericks. I've heard some of those whispers. I just wonder if for the amount of money they're going to have tied up in those 3 stars, if they're going to think that Al Horford is the 3rd guy along LeBron and AD. What are your thoughts?
I think that he fits in with what LeBron and AD would be trying to do, right? LeBron is a ball-dominant player.
Sure.
Horford is not. That 3rd guy, you need him to be able to shoot outside a little bit and play D on, at least positions 2 through 5. And, Horford guarding the 2 and the 3 at this point is still a stretch. But, I mean, he can still take on that responsibility. Besides him, I just think his overall team defense would be great with the Lakers and those 2 big other guys. They'd have the biggest starting 5 in the league, to say the least. I just think he'd be a really good fit there. As far as him leaving the Celtics, I think that was a bad move by the C's. Letting Kyrie go or him leaving shouldn't have had, in my opinion, shouldn't have had any difference whether we kept Al or not. Hopefully Hayward can come back, and now we need him to come back. Worst contract in the NBA, by the way. But I think because of the departure of Horford, the Celtics do need to slow everything down. I don't think that they should go after one of these free agents. I think Gordon Hayward is a perfect example of that. He was the best free agent on the market when we signed him, and at his best, I don't think he's worth $30 million a year.
Really?
Gordon Hayward, you really think that he's worth $30 million a year?
I don't think he is, but I mean, I think at the time, like when you have guys like Wesley Matthews that get like 25 or I don't know, I just feel like he was definitely a guy that I had slotted for a max. I didn't think he was getting anything other than the max. And I was kind of happy to pay him the max. He was 20. Like, at that point, did you really didn't like that? You thought that was a bad move?
No, I thought it was an okay move. I thought we overpaid him from the start, though.
Yeah.
It's like,
see, I think the thing for the Lakers, well, just to get back on your Horford point with the Lakers, I do think it would be like a great basketball fit. You're right. I think part of the reason why guys want to come play with him here is because they can come play with another guy that's going to pass them the ball kind of, right, and also lead. And so I think he would definitely fit in with what they're doing. It just seems like the money is not going to make sense over there, I feel like. They already don't really understand the cap situation. Like, there's been rumors that they hadn't cleared out enough money for AD. Then they're going to have to get a couple guys to put around these guys. I just don't know, ultimately, kind of like, they'd probably want to have a guy like Horford if he took the mid-level exception. I think definitely. I think it's just more like how much of a contributor they kind of. I feel like they'd sign a guy like Kemba before they sign a guy like Horford. But that's just my thought.
No, that might be the case there. That might be the case. Kemba Walker very much could be going to the Lakers. I think that the top 20 point guards are a dime a dozen in the NBA. If you got one of those guys, I think they can pretty much, you can give them the keys to the car. They can run the show. I mean, obviously there are some really bad ones, and there are
So do
one or two.
you put Terry
stellar
Rozier in
ones.
that
I don't-
dozen?
I put him right on the fringe. I think that he had a good year a couple years ago because the Celtics were clicking. But I don't know if he would be the guy. But the Celtics do have a backup plan if he is the guy, and that's Marcus Smart.
Well, do you like that? Do you like that plan?
I don't. No.
So if
but,
you,
I mean,
so I
it's
guess
still
if,
a plan.
So I guess like with all the things that have been kicked around this week, the Kemba, Vucevic, I guess out of all the things you've heard us potentially linked to, what's the thing that you're most in favor of? Like as far as moving forward, keep the young guys.
Yeah. So I would try to stay pat as much as I could. Obviously, you do need to sign a 4 or 5. I think that we'll see what we get with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I think the sky is still the limit for them. I mean, I was just hearing something about Malcolm Brogdon, and he's older than both those guys.
Right.
So patience could still be the play here.
So here's a quick question for you in the aftermath of Al. Obviously, we're kind of in a positionless NBA, right? But is Tatum a guy that you could put in the 4 slot, realistically, you think, in the absence of Al?
No, you can't play defense.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, too. I'm just thinking, like, those guys are going to – both him and Jaylen are going to be out there. But as far as him being able to guard, like, a guy like Julius Randle or anybody that could bring it down in the post like that, I think he'd absolutely get abused. So, I mean, we saw Al Horford get ruined by bigs. I think, we definitely have a big hole here kind of at the big position. What do you think about Robert Williams to make a transition there? How many minutes you think he'll get this year? You think he's decent? How do you think he's going to come along for the Celtics?
We'll see. I guess we'll see what they do. If they go youth, I think you'll see a lot of minutes. If they try to sign that dude from Orlando, I don't know how to say his name, who I think would be a good fit. But again, I don't want to overpay him.
Yeah.
So if I were the Celtics, here's what I would do. If I wanted to make a move, I would look to do something similar to what Golden State did when they brought in the guy from the Sixers.
Iguodala?
I would look to make a similar move for that, like that. And Kemba might be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That way he can maybe mentor the young kids a little bit as they start to come up, and he can still make plays when these guys, are ready for prime time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like, Kemba wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing, I think, for this team, like, as they get older, because I do think he comes here, like, he's kind of a pro's pro by everyone's account, and the other thing, too, is he's just coming off, like, 8 years of losing in Charlotte. We've seen some of those guys, when they come to these winning environments, he could be one of those guys that thrives, and I don't know. He's a guy that makes a lot of shots and can play off the ball too. So, like, I think he would still – I don't think he would inhibit the growth of a guy like Tatum or Brown as much as Irving did, I guess. So, but anyway.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah.
One more point. I'll let you go.
Oh, of course.
You were playing that clip about – I think it was Jalen Rose and a couple other analysts. They were saying that the Celtics could have got Kyrie Leonard. They could have got AD. They swung and they missed on all these players. Well, it's not really fair because the Celtics are in on every single person, or so they say. You're not going to be able to sign everybody. And people forget they did sign Horford, Gordon Hayward, and Kyrie, which were the 2 of the top free agents in back-to-back years. And then the next year was a move similar to trading for one of the guys I just named. So I just think that whole take that they had is a little short-sighted. But I'll hang up and I'll let you continue.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate that, and I'll definitely give you my thoughts on that a little bit. I mean, the thing that I think those guys are trying to bring up versus what you may be saying is I think they're just trying to say that in the aftermath of the Celtics losing these guys, that there has to kind of be some accountability. I think there basically is going around. It seems like this is kind of like an anti-Danny Ainge week, basically, where it's like, okay, we're now looking at it that Danny Ainge has been here for 18 years, that they have won one ring. That have they put together 5 or 6 teams that could have potentially got one? Sure, but at the end of the day, it's 18 years or so in one ring. And then I think people are just looking around and saying, you can't, one, say that you made the good move with Irving and then have Irving, topple your franchise, basically. So I think those guys are just kind of saying, if you don't get Irving, maybe you could have gotten this guy, maybe you could have gotten that guy. Sure, like, there's definitely no guarantee. For my money, one of the reasons why I make that trade is because people say, well, they could have had AD. The Pelicans weren't putting AD on the market at that point in time. So I think I definitely agree with what Mike says in that regard. AD is short-sighted. But they could have done a Kawhi Leonard swap after last year, after they had that first feel of Kyrie. There's definitely different things they could have done. But like I said, at the time that the trade was done, you were getting Kyrie Irving, who was a 25-point-a-game scorer, a guy that we said we were kind of losing in or missing in a guy like Isaiah Thomas that we were building everything around. We're like, but he's only 5'9" at the end of the day, even if he averages 30 points. So we get the guy in who's 6'3", who's got the size, who's better at the shot, and, it just doesn't go as well. So, again, I think that's a good point by Mike. You can't make every move. So to say that he missed like 30 different guys or whatever, yeah, I agree with that. But there definitely were different moves that could have been made. For me, again, that move is just so hard not to pull in the moment. It's getting Kyrie Irving for, you're kind of just sending over an Isaiah Thomas who is dead. And, his hip was just completely –
Right.
The Celtics had better looks on the medicals, basically. That's why that whole – and then the Cleveland had to drag a second pick out of us.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we traded that one they really kind of pulled the so it's basically like I think people looking at it too, they're like, all right, Danny Ainge made this huge haul on the Nets trade, but he just let – Kyrie Irving and Al Horford walk out the door without anything back. And at the end of the day, if you look at the haul from the Nets trade, it's Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Basically.
So is that
worth
everything that we've been talking about? Jason Tatum's a really nice prospect, and I think Brown will be a good player in this league, but is that worth the last however many years of this process? So I think that's kind of what it is, people reckoning with basically the fall down. I think it was kind of like, holy crap, the Celtics are falling last week, and then it's like, okay, like we got to assess some of this blame somewhere. And I think finally just looking at some of the moves that management has made and then looking at some of the moves they could have potentially made outside of that, it's basically like Danny Ainge doesn't get the free pass anymore. He had a free pass for so many years, kind of, where even if they hadn't done well, people just kind of kept pointing at the trades where he had made good hauls back in the day. So just seems like a lot more accountability out of him this week. And I definitely agree about the AD trade because I've heard a lot of analysts saying that, and they weren't making him available until just now, basically.
Right.
So
right.
say that. I don't think that was happening. Andy's also said that he didn't want to be here the whole time. But to say that they couldn't have gotten a guy like Paul George, Jimmy Butler, one of those guys, I think they could have potentially got one of those guys. So if they brought in one of those guys, would that have gone well? Or you just never know. You get Jimmy Butler, and he doesn't mix with anybody in Minnesota, doesn't mix with anybody in the 76ers. Maybe he'll partner up with Kyrie. Those two, the two guys who can't find any perfect situation.
There you go. There's a match made in heaven.
Right? When I heard that the Rockets were looking to do a sign and trade for him, I'm like, I don't know. just feel like the Rockets don't get it. Seems like 2 years ago they had assembled the perfect team, and then they've just done things to get like steps and steps. They've signed Carmelo. They've just like done all these things that have just toppled. They got rid of all the defense that slowed down Golden State and the length, and it's just seems like they're just completely backpedaling from a plan that seemed to be really good a few years ago. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't really see how that helps because Jimmy Butler, another guy that's got to possess the ball to be effective. Not a good guy without the ball in his hands. So how many guys? You've got 3 of those guys on that team right now, and they're all going to be getting the max money.
Right.
So that's going to be. I'm also going to be interested to see what kind of sign and trade comes out of that. You know, what players go, how much is left of the Rockets. Talked about the Lakers maybe having a thin bench. That's going to be a really thin bench if you have 3 max guys in that. So I don't know. A lot to chew on there for as far as the NBA hot stove. Zion Williamson obviously was the number 1 overall pick. I hope everybody watched the draft. Not really a whole lot of excitement from me. I mean, pretty much 1, 2, 3, and then I kind of stopped paying attention. I really don't know much about these young Celtics guys. I think anytime you're kind of picking out of the top 10, you kind of take that as gravy, basically.
Yep.
So we'll see what these guys can do. And the Red Sox here, they've gone up 5-3 against the White Sox, and I think
Top of the 6th.
we're in the top of the 6th, so this one will go official. Got David Price out there still going for the win, so David Price looking okay. And seemed like his unique elbow was going to potentially hold him out after his last game. He was pulled after 73 innings. So I think a lot of us are excited to see him get back there, throw for 6, be up in this one because
Pulled after what?
73 pitches.
73 pitches. Okay, yeah.
So it was just kind of, and like nobody really, the thing was when they pulled him out, it's kind of like everybody acted like he was completely fine. It was like, well, why would you pull him out so quickly? So it's nice to see him out there getting 6 innings. Chris Sale, I believe, is now leading the league in strikeouts. So, you know, while I say that there are some big issues here, and I do still think this team is going to make the playoffs. So for me, I'm always the type of guy that kind of realizes that windows are pretty short. I think that this team needs some serious bullpen help. And even if you look at it last year, they made some serious bullpen moves with the acquisition at the trade deadline and getting God, we both just looked at each other and remembered and then forgot. Why do I always forget this guy's name? Oh my God. All right, never mind. Good Lord. You've got to be absolutely kidding me. All right. All right. We're not going to be able to think of it. So, oh my God. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to stop thinking of it. Anyway, he was the guy who had the Tommy John surgery before. They signed him for 4 years, $17 million. Anyway, he's been out a bunch this year, and they've also had, you know, they didn't bring back Kimbrel to what I think is a smart decision because I think that guy just thought he was worth way too much. So, but we'll see. What do the Red Sox do here? I think they've got to make some moves for a bullpen arm. Brian, what do you think about the Sox if you're them right now? I mean, they pretty much returned a lot of this team from the 2018 season. That was kind of the plan. As far as you stand, you think that's still kind of a good plan to move forward with? What do you think they need to do as far as tweaks?
I'm agreed. It's bullpen. It's bullpen. The hitting will even out. It'll become more consistent. That's the biggest issue with the hitting right now, I think. You know, there's they'll go a few games of putting up 4, 5, 6 runs, and then a couple games of only 1 or 2 runs, and really it's not even the amount of runs. It's they haven't had the big hit at the time when they've needed it as much as they were getting it last season, and I do believe that will even out a little bit. Starting pitching is starting to come around. I mean, Price is actually kind of settled in to be a consistent starting pitcher who will get into the 7th inning with only giving up 2 runs. I think you can count on that, provided he stays healthy. I think Chris Sale, hey, maybe this is the year he figures it out, where he has the slow start and the strong finish.
Hi, you're live on Open Season.
Billy, this is Aaron Davis. How's it going, buddy?
Ooh, wow. Blessed by Aaron, friend of the show. I didn't know if you're even a friend of me. I haven't heard from you in so long. No, how you doing? How you doing, man? It's good to hear from you.
Yeah, man. Sorry for the delay, man. Long time no speak. I wanted to call, show some love to the show, see how you've been doing. We haven't spoken in a while. How are things going with the show, man? What are your thoughts about the Celtics, bro? I'm hearing Kimba, and now I'm hearing there's whispers of KD.
Yeah, you're hearing whispers of KD. I haven't heard those.
That's a new
ones
one.
yet. I haven't taken enough shrooms to. Where are you hearing those ones?
It was an article or a sound bite. Somebody was like, he reached out to Gordon Hayward because of the leg injury and how he recovered, ABC, XYZ with that, right? Like, okay, he was able to come back in a year. I saw it once, so I'm like, all right, that's a shot in the dark, but I mean, I wouldn't say no to it. That's for daggone sure.
Well, I don't think anybody. I'd be happy to sign Kevin Durant for a max deal and have him sit out the entire year, if that's what you're saying. So, totally.
Right.
One of the things that would immediately kind of like come up on my antenna would be the fact that Al Horford just left, which a few years ago when we had the whole party in the Hamptons, seemed like Al Horford was the guy that we were kind of banking on to bring him in there. You know, it seemed like they were pretty tight. And I guess if Horford doesn't kind of see the value here, is it like the way that those guys talk. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about the way that Kyrie kind of left, maybe who he talked to, and just as far as like if this area was kind of like bad-mouthed as a free agent destination, and with Horford leaving, that makes me a bit skeptical on any type of Kevin Durant rumor. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Horford's leaving because he wants to get paid. Let's keep it real. Horford's not a spring chicken anymore. You know what I'm saying? His knees are starting to knock. He doesn't have the same bounce in his step like he used to. Still an all-star. Still going to demand some great attention. But we need some youth. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. We're not going to give him $100 million. You can cancel that. And if you want to get packing and go somewhere else to get your $100 million, good luck. Thank you for your services. We appreciate that. Horford leaving does leave a gaping hole in the middle, but I do believe we need some youth in the middle with a little bit more protein, somebody who has some size and some youth.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy?
That I don't know.
I mean, I think you'd be a rich man right now if you could put the name on. So I totally agree with you. I think there's a big hole there. Are there any guys that you've heard of or that you're looking at that maybe bring in? You say a young guy in the center. I did hear that Willie Cauley-Stein is looking to get moved. Is that anything that would be of any interest to you?
Didn't hear anything like that. I mean, honestly, Billy, I don't have anybody in mind, like anybody you thought. I mean, I know that the rookie, the kid we just drafted, he seems to be someone who's literally like chomping at the bit to fill that role. Like, I forget his name. I think his last name's Williams. Tall guy, good hands, good feet, good posture. I really do forget his name. But he's one of the guys we just drafted. But we'll see. We still got that rookie from last year. He seems to be like, he's very athletic. Again, I really want to see
I think you're talking about Grant Williams, the guy that they got out of Tennessee.
Yes.
6'7".
Yes. He's like 6'7", 6'8", kind of real stocky. Plays fundamentally sound. He can go over the right shoulder, go over the left shoulder. Has great touch around the hoop. You know what I'm saying? So that makes sense. I think Kyrie is a bad apple. Kyrie's that bad apple that wants to be a negative Nancy and just sour up the whole damn joint. Get the hell out, Kyrie. You're an amazing player, but I'd rather have somebody who wants to buy into the system, who's going to show up with a great positive attitude and play. It's hard to replace Kyrie. It's impossible to replace Kyrie.
If they put the Kyrie trade in front of you, the one that they executed on a few years ago today, would you do it? How would you approach it?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the squad. It depends on the squad, and he let his team down. No BS. I think Kyrie let his team down. I really do. I think he had a premier opportunity to walk into a situation and really be a great leader, a leader on the floor, a leader off the floor, and really pour in his intellect to the youth. And he didn't do that. He got hurt, and then he got in his feelings. When he got hurt and he was in his feelings because they were being successful, the young guys were, instead of like being a cheerleader and amping them on and like guiding them the way on the bench, he did it a little bit, but he was sourpuss. He was there with the poo-poo face, you know. So he has to go. He's not gonna, you know. And then with KD now out for a whole year, now I'm hearing that the Nets are like reconsidering picking up Kyrie,
Yeah, I've heard like. Yeah, to hit on that point, I've heard of a lot of guys potentially like switching up their scenario. They're talking about a lot of guys maybe doing a 1-year deal to try to line themselves up with when they think I think the big thought right now is that basically Kevin Durant's going to do a sign the Supermax with the Warriors, but basically do a year of it and then get traded to the Knicks at some point, I feel like. So I feel like there's guys that may be trying to line up their free agency deadline with that. You may see Kawhi do a 1-year deal. I mean, I don't know. For my money, I still think you're going to see Kawhi go to the Clippers. I feel like it's kind of been like a deal that's been like years in the making, kind of. It's more like a lifestyle deal. But I guess for you, right now we're kind of looking at a core of Hayward, Smart, Rozier, Brown, Tatum. Where do you kind of go from here if you're Danny Ainge?
If I'm Danny Ainge, I'm looking to plug up the middle, point blank period. Plug up the middle. We saw what happened. We saw how Giannis was just taking 2 steps and getting to the cup. You know what I'm saying? Getting right to the bucket. That can't happen. You know what I'm saying? Kawhi was going to do the same thing. Anybody who knows how to put their shoulder down and has some leverage and has a pretty good, stop and pop mid range, or I call it a low mid range. They're gonna chew right through us. So I guess I would fill that hole. We already know and we don't even know if Rozier is gonna stay. That's another question because we don't even have a true point guard now. We don't. I mean, I think Smart is good, but honestly,
I'd rather have a D-League guy. Just as far as bringing the ball up, I mean, I think a lot of he just I hate on, I'll admit it. I probably give him more hate than he may need or whatever, but let's be real, like I don't think anybody's confident with him handling the ball really.
I'm not. Has he improved? Yes. Is he the heart and soul of our defensive presence on the floor? Of course he is.
The problem is he'll also punch a wall at the first second. That's the thing I hate. Like, I feel like, you ever think about that? How that seems to get lost, I guess, with him, but maybe not other athletes. It's I think he's broken his. Go ahead.
When he broke his hand, his mom recently died that year too, though.
Yeah, no,
you know
I mean, I'm obviously not trying to trivialize that in any way, but I think it was like in a game situation and. Tim Duncan's mom. I mean, there's plenty of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, it's kind of like, he gets injured a lot. It seems like he can't. Yeah. So I mean, and the other thing is the Celtics is part of their strategy to keep Kyrie. I think the biggest thing where they're at fault, and I don't know, you tell me. I think it's how they kind of attach their wagon to. I think they assumed way too much on what what Kyrie was doing. Like, they assumed he was going to stay here. Like, just by getting him, they're like, we'll be able to keep him. You know, it's like Boston was never on his trade destinations, and stuff like that. So, do you look at that at all as like an undersight as far as?
No, I think, well, Kyrie hasn't played a full season and God knows how long as well. You know what I'm saying? He's injury prone. That was my thing with Kyrie. Can Kyrie play a full season? And can he really lead a squad? No. The answer is blaringly no. He can't. He can't.
Yeah, I think for him, unfortunately, this playoff, like this year, was basically a demonstration to everybody kind of that he is like factually kind of the best too. Like, he can't do this on his own. Like, I think that was kind of on display. He wanted his own team. He wanted the challenge, and I think he kind of showed everybody that he is closer to a 2. I mean, again, he is extremely talented. He's as close as it gets to a 1, but I think he is a 2.
He's a bona fide 2 that doesn't have the IQ doesn't have the experience to really lead a group of men. You know what I'm saying? A group of young men to the victory. He doesn't have it. And he's a shoot first guy. His style of play. To me, he's like this is a big for me to say. He's like a souped up AI, right? Because AI could razzle dazzle, get to the cup, pretty good jumper, small guy, but still his style of play I resonate with. But AI also knew how to rally the troops and like not take it personal if somebody was getting off. Kyrie was emotional. We saw Kyrie be emotional. I think his move out of Cleveland was emotional. I think it showed then. You know what I'm saying? I was hoping that, with everything working out with the team that we had, he was going to be able to push his ego to the side and just really just buy into the system and do so. And he did it for a little while. But hey, I mean, he got back in his way. I wouldn't be mad at Akemba, though. I wouldn't be mad at Kemba Walker. I wouldn't be mad at Kemba at all.
Well, how's this? One of the big things I heard, or another name that's getting floated around, is Nikola Vucevic from Orlando. You had talked about the need to plug things up in the middle. He's 28. Does that name do anything for you, Aaron?
I'm not mad at that.
Kind of leave you on that as the last thing before we
let
you on your way there.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Not at all.
Okay,
Not at all.
So, and you'd pay him max? You'd max up Vucevic?
I don't know about all that.
I think that's what he's going to be looking for, but we'll see.
I mean, I'm looking forward to growing to be 6'5", but it's not going to happen at 37 years old.
Yeah, you need to find Tom Brady's doctor if you want help with that. Well, hey, man, we appreciate you calling in. Good stuff as always. Let you get back to your night as we wrap up.
Have a great
these Celtics here. Good stuff from Aaron there on the Celtics. Think he hit on a lot of things that people said. A lot of the blame why it couldn't go as hard to Danny Ainge, I feel like, is because nobody really could have guessed what Kyrie would have turned into. Nobody could have guessed that he was going to not take a guy like Jason Tatum under his wing and kind of be fighting for touches over him and be jealous over things like that. It's like the kid's 19, you're 26, you're the bona fide star.
Well, that was a good comparison to Iverson, to the mentality aspect.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, it's a good thing that we probably don't have a lot of fans in Philadelphia because, I think AI was a hell of a much more intense, kind of played through anything.
Absolutely. No, I think that's what the caller was saying, that it was the lack of that team first mentality. Yeah, sure. Everybody knows you're the best player on the team. You're the superstar, but that superstar has to have the mentality of, I'll lead, but I'm one of the guys.
Totally. And he totally did not have that relationship. Very interesting quote out of Doug Gottlieb this week, actually. He was talking about an experience with Kyrie Irving, was saying that in his first year with the Celtics or something, he was the first guy to show up at practice, film session, 8 in the morning, Brad Stevens there, sipping his coffee, whatever. shows up, like said that Brad Stevens always morning, goes morning. Kyrie goes morning. What does government mean to you? To Brad Stevens. And Gottlieb said, that his source or whatever said that Brad Stevens took a long sip of his coffee, kind of babbled out some answer that didn't really try to give Kyrie an answer either way, because he was like, I got to kind of dictate to whichever way. And then he goes, what does it mean to you, Kyrie? And he just said control. And I mean, this is the type of guy you're dealing with. Like, you go in there and you're like, hey, we want to work on the, we can look at the film from last night, and what does government mean? So this is the type of guy that you're dealing with, and, I think the moral of the story is nobody really guessed what he was ultimately going to turn into, so how much blame can you give? I think a lot of us would have made the trade again, but at the same point, it also left us in ruins. So what would you do if you could reverse it? Seems like the Celtics are going to be a young team moving forward here. Unless they're able to swing something, that would be pretty crazy for what we can all see at this point. So, another exciting thing, though, I guess, before we check out of here is just with New Orleans, as far as how many picks they got, how many young guys they got to be able to start over with Lonzo Ball, with Zion Williamson, with Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, 3 number 1 picks. I think they're also keeping Jrue Holiday as well. So that is a team that seems like they're signed, and we see so many of these guys come into the league and do like 6-7 years where they don't have any playoff success. I'm not saying necessarily that Zion's going to be great out of the gate, but it seems like they've given him a pretty good path to succeed. We'll see what they put around him, but I think a lot of people were like, that'd suck if he just kind of goes there himself. And, I think that Brandon Ingram can make shots. He hasn't played to his full potential, but I think Lonzo Ball can get those guys both the shots that they need and get them the ball in the places where they need. Zion Williamson isn't necessarily like the biggest playmaker himself, sometimes needs to get that ball in the right spot.
Yeah.
But just seems like a lot of capital that they're going to have to work with, and it's going to be exciting for some of these young teams. Just as there's a little bit more parity and a little bit more of Golden State's not automatically going to win.
Right.
We looked at the Lakers, who pretty much had no shot as far as Vegas was concerned a few weeks ago. Now they're the number 1 favorite to get to the finals, which is honestly something I'm kind of laughing at. The Lakers haven't even really figured out the salary cap situation around Anthony Davis, and Jeannie Buss is still saying that there's no issues with Rob Pelinka. So it just seems like an absolute mess. And as far as attracting a third star or another star, I get the allure of L.A., but it just seems like a tough time. I think, honestly, it was a lot of luck that they were able to get Anthony Davis. I mean, that was a tough situation to get traded into with all the chaos that's gone on there. So we'll see. But it's one thing where Lakers kind of do everything wrong, and they're reaping benefits somehow.
Yep.
Celtics kind of did everything that we thought was right, and we're seeing what that turns up to. So windows can be short.
Yep.
And so is ours. As we check out from another edition of Open Season.
Nathan Eovaldi.
Oh, yeah, Nathan Eovaldi. I'm going to be sleeping to that.
Wasn't that was the guy you were thinking of, right?
Yep, counting sheep. Each time I'm going to say Nathan.
Because what threw me off, you said reliever. You said the reliever we picked up, and had the Tommy
He was a reliever
John.
when we first picked it.
I know, he was, yes, but he made his bones as a starting pitcher for the team last year. So
yes,
I won't lie.
A discarded reliever from Tampa, I guess, was kind of like the point. Like, we were able to bring a guy in like that.
Yep.
Have success in the bullpen.
I thought of him last year.
Hopefully we can go out and get another guy like that.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody thought that he'd have any impact like that.
No.
So.
Well, and you know what? Hey, maybe, and just to kind of quickly sign off on that, it's kind of like the comp to the Gordon Hayward situation of we get this guy back. It's almost like we traded for him when he's been hurt, and
we made the Eastern Conference Finals, and we add Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. What could possibly go wrong? Well, hey, for another edition of Open Season, for Brian, I'm Billy. We'll catch you next week. Take care.